Hey, everybody. Great to see all y'all out there in Son of Sam land. Hey, we got a legendary one for you on tap today. Yes. Today we are righting a historical wrong. In fact, we are cleaning up another shit-stained mess of Maury Terry's. Yes, this guy was a true crime criminal. That's what I call him. And you guys can see all my videos debunking basically every last aspect of the ultimate evil. It's pathetic how much that guy lied to us with malice aforethought. He had to know he was lying. Why? Because he was using the same notes that we're using, the same exact police files that we're using. He talked about a green auto and Christine Freund. Oh, yeah, it was holding Bill Menser and Bob Lowe and the assassins brought in from California. No, it wasn't. It was just some dude dropping off a random passenger at the LIRR. I mean, give me a break here. And then the red car from the Freund auto turned out to be a nothing burger completely. But this guy really did some damage. He really did some human wreckage to people. And to this day, people are still repeating the old mantras, the old lies. Oh, yeah, John Carr was Wheaties. There's no evidence that this guy's nickname was Wheaties. There's absolutely zero evidence in the public domain that John Carr's nickname was Wheaties. He actually outright named Wheat Carr as a shooter in Voskerichi, and there's absolutely no evidence. In fact, all the evidence points to David Berkowitz because he not only confessed, but you had freaking Mr. Whatever that Barlow basically described him perfectly, and Berkowitz talked about it perfectly, and we debunked all that stuff. And then, of course, the third of the triumvirate, he basically said that the sandy-haired Michael Vale Baron Charkowski Carr was a shooter in Judy Placido's shooting. I mean, it's ridiculous. And let's not forget, of course, Sam Carr became Scottish with massive amounts of heart troubles because of some freaking OU spelling in one of the Son of Sam letters, even though they were of Russian, Ukrainian descent. And then, of course, Francis became a military intelligence person from the Marines. I mean, it's totally ridiculous. These are historical crimes that need to be righted. Maury Terry slandered an innocent family, and not only were they innocent, the Carr families were heroes of the Son of Sam story. I actually can't believe I'm saying this because I spent almost 30 years as a Maury Terry fan, believing every last aspect of his narrative. I actually believe Mr. Real Estate was in Untermeyer Park. I believe there was an actual character named Billy the Artist sketching said real estate in Untermeyer Park. I believe that Billy the Artist gave the alphabet to John Carr, who then wrote the Son of Sam letter. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, what else do we believe? Do we believe at this point? Do we believe that Rumpelstiltskin was Circle Jack in the pipe band while Mahatma Gandhi was honoring the picnickers in Riverdale Park? I mean, give me a break. So we got a lot to do today. I put together a good show for you today, hopefully making some of you guys laugh. But this is a serious subject. I mean, this is ridiculous already. This guy, Maury Terry, is going down in hell as a true crime criminal. And one of the main crimes that he did was slandering the heroes of Son of Sam, the Carr family, the people who were trying to get Berkowitz arrested for months, who were complaining to Yonkers PD for months about this guy, naming him by name, in fact, showing them the letters that he sent, talking about the firebombings, the shootings of their dogs. It wasn't only happening to them, it was happening to the Nettos as well. In fact, Sam Carr went down to the 109th precinct, to the Omega Task Force specifically, and gave David Berkowitz's full name specifically to the Omega Task Force. You're going to tell me that this is the actions of an international Satanist that was in Untermeyer Park guiding Berkowitz's hand? Give me a break, guys. It's funny. There's like a resurgence going on right now. All the usual suspects and grifters are coming out now, It was the process. The process was involved in Son of Sam. Where you, what? I mean, listen, be a process researcher all you want. I mean, to me, it's the stupidest shit in the world. It's the most boring subject. Who cares? Here's the process in a nutshell. Most likely military intelligence handled by Britain and the United States for some specific weird purposes to target people in the 1960s and 70s. Okay, it's probably what it was. Who gives a crap? All right, what does it have to do with David Berkowitz? And ultimately, that's the question that we have to ask ourselves as Son of Sam researchers, serious Son of Sam researchers. What does any of this stuff have to do with David Berkowitz? The way, the cosmic police, the process. And as Ruby says, right, they were already a new name once the crimes occurred. So yeah, Ray J, it was Halloween recently, all the freaks ramp up activities to scam money out of gullible people, nothing to do with SOS. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm getting blocked on Twitter by people now who are like supposedly investigators into this. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. All right, so we got a lot to do today, guys. So, of course, the topic today is Son of Sam's car crimes, the firebombs and the letters. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to get the deepest into these crimes that anybody has ever done historically. I want this video to be the clearinghouse of all the information against that Berkowitz did against the cars. And not only that, but we're going to take the extra step of placing these crimes within the context of the larger Son of Sam spree, which was never done before either. Because there's some interesting parallels in timing with some of these letters and some clusters of Son of Sam shootings. And you can clearly see a ramping up of psychotic activity by David Berkowitz. So it's really interesting to look at these things with this new, fresh perspective. Maury Terry actually did the best job that he did in The Ultimate Evil was talking about Berkowitz's neighborhood terrorism spree. But he made the mistake of placing it into the context that Berkowitz was trying to escape the clutches of the cult, and he was trying to get arrested for other crimes, so he'd be off the street, so the cult couldn't name him as an accomplice, and all that kind of stuff. Listen, hey, believe that if you want. That's fine. I also hear they're hiring up at the North Pole for elves this year. So you may want to go, after you go believe that, you may want to go apply for a new job. So, yes. So we're talking about the Son of Sam, the firebombs, and the letters. Okay. Now, why are we talking about the firebombs and letters? Because we still have more crimes to cover, which are going to be in part 2. We have the shooting of Harvey and then, of course, the subsequent work that the Carrs did to try to get this guy nabbed. But as I was saying, Maury Terry did a good job in his book of talking about these crimes. He just put it in the wrong perspective. He for some reason didn't realize that the Carrs were heroes of this story, had like a personal beef against this family. I mean, Wheat says it was because Mory was kicked out of their house when he was 16 years old for stepping up to some female. It might have been her, it might have been John Carr's girlfriend. The story kind of changes over time. Not sure how much I really believe it. There's been no independent verification that Maury Terry actually was friends with the Carrs, that he knew them, that he was in their house. So, I can't just take Wheat Carr's word for gold. I actually have to apply the same standards that I applied to Maury Terry. I have to apply them to her as well. And without independent verification, all we have to go by is that story. We don't know whether it's true or not. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. The simple fact is, Maury Terry horrifically slandered these people, and he did it to 2 of them after they were dead, so they could never defend themselves. And so anyway, we got a lot to do today. Let's just get right into it. So before we actually get into the meat of the matter, I prepared a little video for you today. Let me just get it so it's large. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a little overviews of the neighborhood itself. And this is from drone footage that I got with the help of the great Mike Lorenzo and his, I believe his son-in-law did this for us, owns a company called Westchester Drone Ops. It's been a while, so I don't remember the exact relationship that Mike had with the guy. I think it was his son-in-law, though. Anyway, so this is the neighborhood that we're talking about. And right now, what we're looking at, for all y'all out there out in Son of Sam land, we are now looking at, the Carr house, as seen basically from Berkowitz's apartment. Now, not exactly. We're flying over the Carr house with a drone. But you can see it's a very large property, lot of space back there. We're going over it now again with the drone again. And this was the neighborhood that he terrorized. He terrorized, of course, the Carr household, and he terrorized, of course, the Nettos on Wicker Street. And he also had a hard-on against the people in 22 Wicker Street as well. But this is the Carr house, the very infamous Carr house. Good that we're getting this footage because they just rezoned this area and they're going to be tearing down the Carr house at some point in the not in the near future, but probably within the next 2 years. That's going to be an apartment complex. All right, so we got the last great footage of this, and of course we got it from our drone. So, yeah, just wanted to give you guys all this perspective. We got some more drone footage coming up in a second. Let me take a look at the chat while you guys are looking at that. We got a new name here, Melinda Joels, who said, "Hi, Manny." Hi, Melinda. How are you? And for doing this with 5 minutes notice, I'm very happy we have 22 people watching live. So that's great. I was originally going to do this another day, but I'm bored today. So anyway, this is a good drone footage because now we can see Berkey's apartment. I'm going to pause this for a second. So if you look at the top floor on the right, where you see the first fire escape, that is Berkowitz's apartment. Now, this pisses me off to no end, because I live under horrible neighbors, right? I hate my neighbors upstairs. I wish them great harm, and I want them to be in absolute hell. And the reason why is because they wake up at 4 a.m. They walk around on carpeted floors with their shoes on. It really drives me up the wall, right? I have a mild form of of what Berkowitz had, where noises like that drive me crazy. But he lived on a top floor. Okay. He didn't have a person above him. He not only lived on the top floor, wait till you see this dude's view. This guy had one of the best views in all of history in terms of the Hudson River. I mean, we're going to be panning up in a second, and you're going to see the neighborhood he terrorized. He was so concerned with the Netto household in 18 and 22 Wicker Street that you're starting to see on the left there, and the Carr household on the right, that he didn't even take the time to look up and look at that beautiful view of the Hudson. I mean, it's like, look at the view this guy had. Absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, one of the things also that we want to emphasize in this show today is that David did not know the Carr family. Sorry, morons or moristas or whatever name I'm calling you now. David didn't know the Carrs. He used the phone book to identify them. We vindicated that with the Killer Tapes podcast, and we're going to listen to a little bit of that now. Again, we're establishing things before we get into the meat of the matter. We're establishing certain historical facts. So this is from
Jack asked David if the Carrs or the Nettos knew who was behind the bombings.
Did Carr or these other people know that you were the one doing the firebombing?
From what I understand, after a while they got an idea it was, but they didn't know. I never met them personally.
What gave them the idea?
Oh, it was a whole series of circumstances. It's pretty complex.
What gave them the idea?
But they didn't know. I never met them personally.
So I'm repeating it.
No, I never met them personally. No, I never met them personally.
So here he is saying, I never met them personally. Right? Yeah. And Melinda makes up a great point here. If he knew them, he would have I'm going to just correct that, known the dog's name was Harvey. He never mentioned it. And of course, Ruby, as she knows, he used the good old White Pages phone book. So here he is saying he didn't know the Carr family. I mean, process researchers, I don't know how you're going to deal with this information, but
No, I never met them personally. No, I never met them
I'm repeating
personally.
this on purpose.
No, I never met them personally. No, I never met them personally.
So here he is saying that he never met the Carrs personally, right? So by 1980, when he was giving these interviews to Jack Jones, he had already said to the people of the world that he did not know the Carrs personally. So why is he telling Maury Terry that he knew the Carrs personally and that he was personal friends with John and Michael and that they were devil worshippers and how Michael was a devil worshiper and John was a rapist and suffocator? I mean, the guy did not know the Carrs. He didn't know the Nettos. He just admitted it on tape. Okay. So that's one vindication that establishes our baseline. He didn't know these people. So then how did he know their names? Well, he found Greg Glassman's name. How? Well, we're gonna read exactly how he found Craig Glassman's name right now. Now, before I continue this, I know it's a little confusing because you're watching an old video of mine. This is the live Manny. This is me right now, November 2nd, 2023. So again, he didn't actually. So he said that he didn't know the Carrs personally. Okay, good enough for me. I believe him, right? So then, of course, here he is talking about how he found Craig Glassman's name, and just extrapolate out. This is how he found Joaquin Giancarlo's name, and I guarantee you, this is how he found the Carr's name.
One of the reasons that he couldn't sleep, in addition to the turmoil in his own mind and dogs that barked at neighbors' houses around him, was that he had moved in directly above a guy who liked to watch television late into the night, and according to David, played it very loud. David had written him a couple of anonymous, semi-threatening notes without signing them.
The noise of the barking dogs. Okay, you know, I can imagine what you went through there. Were there any other sort of grating, constant noises or anything that would drive you up the wall?
Yeah, the guy's TV sat downstairs and the stereo next door.
Again, David, unable to approach the man with the loud TV, wrote letters and lit fires, saying later, quote, "This man had his TV on too loud. He drove me crazy. I was afraid to approach him," end quote. That man's name was Craig Glassman, and he was an auxiliary deputy sheriff in the emergency services unit of the Westchester County Sheriff's Office in White Plains, where he volunteered in traffic control, patrolling schools, and providing security during community events. He wore a green uniform issued to him by the county sheriff, and he was licensed to carry a firearm. He was also recently divorced, which is why he had moved into the unit directly below Berkowitz, apartment 6E.
The cop that lived downstairs from you, he said lived downstairs.
Yeah, he used to play his TV loud. I looked in the phone book and I saw that his name was Craig Glassman. That's how it started. I looked in the phone book and I saw that his name was Craig Glassman. That's how it started. I looked in the phone book and I saw that his name was Craig Glassman. That's how it started.
Repeating on purpose.
I looked in the phone book and I saw that his name was Craig Glassman. That's how it started. I looked in the phone book and I saw that his name was Craig. I looked in the phone book and I saw that his name. I looked in the phone book and I saw that his name was Craig Glassman. That's how it started.
Exactly, Moet. He looked in the phone book. And Ray J brings up a good point here. He goes, I didn't believe the phone book story at first. A lot of people didn't. And they didn't because of the same reason. They didn't know your phone books did addresses as a checkable option. They never did in the UK. Yes. There were phone books in the 70s and 80s that had addresses, and you could look up the address and then you could find who lived there. So that's what he did with Joaquin Giancarlo. That's what he did with Craig Glassman. And I guarantee you, because if he did 2 out of 3, this is how he found his biological mother, too. He looked in the phone book. He did a lot of research using phone books, historical phone books, too. He would go to the New York Public Library and look up old phone books from the 1950s and 1940s. Berkowitz was a smart guy. He had a IQ of about 118 to 120. He was very well written, very well read. Maury Terry gave us a comic book version of this guy, and we're still dealing with that because we're still dealing with total reprobates who still to this day literally say, I don't care about the ballistics, the forensics, and any of the evidence. It was the process. So anyway, there's really not much you can do to help people like that. All right, so we're going to go back to our video in a little bit. I want to start our slideshow here because we got quite a bit to do. All right, so Disco Dave moves to Yonkers. All right, so so we got to place everything into historical context. We're doing like almost like a little timeline here. So on April 15th, 1976, Berkowitz moves to 35 Pine Street, apartment 7E, and his car is listed as a 1970 Ford Galaxy four-door sedan, yellow with a black vinyl top. Okay, we don't need to go through the rest of this. He moves there on April 15th, 1976. So that's when Berkowitz first moves into Pine Street. May 13th is when the crimes begin. Not even a month later, he's already being driven crazy by his neighbors. Now, notice it is not the Carrs that come under his ire and fire first. It's the Nettos. Okay? May 13th, 1976, less than a month after he moves in, at 3:30 a.m., there was a small fire to the exterior of the three-story frame house at 18 Wicker Street, owned by Joaquin Netto, which was caused by the throwing of a Molotov cocktail, wherein firemen responded and extinguished the fire. Police officers Jesse Taylor and Kelsey Hogue and Detective Michael Lorenzo and Detective Edward Oakley investigated this arson report. All right, so he goes and hits the Nettos first. Now, let's hear the Nettos.
One of the reasons
So he looked in the... We don't have him say... Found those,
one night.
all right, and he used the wrong spelling of timing was messed up here. Sorry about that. All right, let's hear the Nettos talk about that Molotov cocktail because he hit them first.
One night, he threw a Molotov. How you call it?
Molotov cocktail.
And my daughter slept that night with my mother
Upstairs,
in the second
floor.
upstairs, to make a company to my mother. Then, where they send the cocktail Molotov, my house burned all in the front. And they don't hit the bed where they are because we have
a screen.
The screen. And then this why they don't burn inside where she was.
Fell down and it exploded.
Right.
In the front, I can show you.
The Molotov cocktail hit where?
Up there. Sylvia could see the flame because they were sleeping in that room. That was my bedroom. I used to sleep with my grandmother. But I moved out, with my mother for 3 months, and then I came back after the fire.
So you were not there when the Molotov cocktail hit. Sylvia was there.
And my grandmother. Sylvia was sleeping with my grandmother.
Sylvia was sleeping. So Sylvia was up there the night of the firebombing.
Yes.
All right. So, he comes into town and he immediately starts firebombing people. And let's not forget that the Netto family had a barking dog that drove him crazy, as well as the Carrs. The Carrs get all the attention because it was their family that he named himself after. But he was equally as pissed off at the Nettos for whatever crimes he was imagining them committing, and he did the same things to them. But today we're talking mainly about the Carr family. But I wanted to throw this Netto stuff in there just so we can see that this wasn't isolated stuff. This guy was going crazy in the neighborhood. And it wasn't to get him off the street so he couldn't be blamed for the process and all this stuff. This guy was freaking wigging out. He was nuts. So that's the Netto Molotov cocktail. Now, October 9th, 1976. So this is about four months later. A Molotov cocktail. So Berkowitz starts these crimes in the neighborhood with Molotov cocktails. He doesn't even get to know. He doesn't even buy them dinner first. He's just like sending Molotov cocktails into their windows first. I mean, dude, at least like send them a letter first, or like maybe give them a call first. Like Molotov cocktail, talk about going nuclear right away. But October 9th, so the first crime to the Carr family was October 9th, 1976. A Molotov cocktail was thrown through the window of Sam Carr's house at 316 Warburton Avenue, which landed in a small office of his telephone answering service, which he extinguished with a fire extinguisher. Firemen responded, and the damage was minimal. All right, so that happened on October 9th, 1976. Okay, and we can clearly see, hold on one second. I just want to make it so I can see everything on my screen here. And we can see here on 10/11/76 in Street Beat, it was reported a Molotov cocktail was thrown through the window of Carr's telephone answering service. This is a historic article right here. This is the first reporting of a David Berkowitz crime in the neighborhood, okay, to the Carr family. So, and no one knew it at the point. So, causing minimal damage and no injuries. So, 420. I don't know why this says 330. No, 330 was the Netto one. Anyway, we don't need to go through all of this. This is basically an article that speaks of the same incident. But for the interest of time, we're going to move on. So, here's the detective report of the arson, October 9th, 1976. Everything checks out. 4:20 a.m. 4:20. Sam Carr was 64, male, white. Okay, and basically the police reports say essentially the same thing. I'm not sure we're going to read the whole thing. A sign sent by headquarters relative to a fire, which was caused by an apparent firebomb. Upon arrival, the assigned spoke to Samuel Carr, white male, 64 years, of 316 Warburton Avenue, that he operates the Carr telephone service, and he stated that approximately 4:15 he was sitting at the switchboards located on the first floor when he heard a crash. He then went into the smaller office, which is located in the front of the house, and found a fire burning in said room. By the use of fire extinguisher, he extinguished the blaze. So anyway, investigation revealed that person unknown apparently walked to the house, tossing a Molotov cocktail through a window located on the northwest corner, which landed on a desk in a small office located at the front of the house. So Berkowitz was a firebug. Remember, this guy was lighting fires all over the Bronx, right? Chris Banks. Berkowitz had an incendiary personality. Yes, he was already very well versed in Molotov cocktailing. Jim Fay suspects that he Molotov cocktailed a car on his block that he thought was his. It turned out not to be his, but it was the same color. And it was after they reported Berkowitz for the fire arson in City Island. So this guy was, well, let's just put it this way. Berkowitz was a freaking nutcase. I mean, Maury Terry would have you think he was an innocent schlub, a patsy, person who was being guided by hidden forces all around him. Meanwhile, we can see that this guy's throwing Molotov cocktails in various houses in his neighborhood, not even a month after he moves in, and wait till you see what happens next. And don't forget, October 9th, 1976, between the firebombing of the Nettos in May and between October 9th of 1976, you already had the Loria shooting. This was right before the Carl Denaro shooting, like 2 weeks before, not even, right? So interesting how he gets onto these fixations and then he goes out and shoots people, right? Now, I'm just making that connection. I'm not saying that there is one there. He was definitely spiritually sick, Moet. Absolutely. So anyway, that's the report. So now we have the letters, okay? And the letters, there's not that many of them. There's only 2. So we're gonna read them, and you can see how insane this guy was. So here's the detective report, April 21st, 1977. Now, April 1977, it's now 4 or 5 months after, about 7 months after the last incident. He had already gone out and shot Loria, Denaro, Lomino Damasi, and who was after Lomino Damasi? Freund. Then you had Voskerichian. He had already done 5 shootings in between the time that he did these crimes to the Carrs and the Nettos. Okay, so April 21, 1977. That's the front of the detective report. Now, the assigned sent by Detective Giannico to investigate a report of threatening letters to a Samuel Carr at 316 Warburton. Upon arrival, spoke to the daughter, Wheat Carr, white female, 26 years old, who stated that on April 11th, she had received a letter from an anonymous person stating that this person was starting a file legal papers against the complainant to have one of his dogs removed from the property, as it is a public nuisance, and then goes on 2 pages complaining of the dog barking and annoying persons. Complainant's daughter, Miss Carr, received another letter signed a citizen on April 20th. Also, majority of the letter complaining about the dogs that Mr. Carr has and about their barking. This unknown person wrote, quote, "My life is destroyed now. I have nothing to lose anymore. I can see that there shall be no peace in my life or my family's life until I end yours," unquote. Said letter is dated April 19th, 1977. The assigned, checking the envelope, postmarked April 11th, 1977, written to Mr. Samuel Carr, 316 Warburton Avenue, New York. Return address was the Modern Shipping Service, 345 Hudson Street, New York, New York, 10014. Said letter postmarked in Westchester, New York. And checking the second letter dated April 20, 1977, written on the rear flap, HH, Yonkers, New York. Said letter was also mailed in Westchester. The assigned, in speaking with Miss Wheat Carr, said that she had stated that she had a firebomb thrown in her place on October 9th. So think about if you're Wheat Carr, right? You're firebombed in October. Then in April, all of a sudden you start getting all these crazy letters, right? And you're telling the cops, "Hey, I was firebombed. I'm getting these letters." I mean, think about how that must. These are serious crimes, right? I mean, think about how that must make her feel, and the fear of that there was some anonymous dude writing them letters, sending them firebombs, right? So this is just the same thing, just written out. We're not going to go over it because, in the interest of time, I'll put these on my Facebook. For anybody who follows me on Facebook, I'll put these slides up so you can have them for your own records. And then they investigated the envelope. Okay, April 22nd, 1977. The assigned continuing investigation into the threatening letters to Samuel Carr contacted Modern Shipping Services, located at 345 Hudson Street, as one of the envelopes involved had the heading of this company. The assigned spoke to Mr. O'Shea of the Modern Shipping Service. The assigned requested a check of his employees with the possibility initials HH. At this time, Mr. O'Shea had informed the assigned that there was no one working in that company with the initials HH. All right, so here is the envelope that we're talking about. Modern Shipping Service, 345 Hudson Street, addressed to Mr. Samuel Carr in that typical Berkowitz handwriting. Clearly Berkowitz, the K's are his, the L's are his, the R's are his. Anybody who knows this case knows that this is Berkowitz's handwriting. April 11th, 1977. So it's all checking out. Now, of course, there's a couple questions here. How did he have this address of how did he have this envelope of Modern Shipping Service Incorporated? And the answer to that is, I have no freaking clue. It's a mystery. Is it conspiratorial? I highly doubt it. This guy was roaming all around New York City, driving around all areas in the middle of the night. He could have come across a batch of these envelopes thrown out on the street in front of this place. Maybe when he was working security at IBI, he was guarding this place or visited Modern Shipping Service. I have no idea. Okay. I don't really think it matters. Is there anybody out there? Probably, actually. Is there anybody out there who thinks that this is part of the conspiracy? The Modern Shipping Service? And of course, the HH, which we do not see anywhere here because we don't have a picture of the rear flap. Maury Terry had us believe that was stood for Heil Hitler. I don't know of any proof of that. It's just two H's. It could mean anything. It could be hello, Harry. It could mean hi, honey. It could mean anything, right? But of course, Mory had us. He had to throw in the Hitler connection, the Nazi connection, of course. So anyway, let's read the letter. This is an interesting letter because it's a dream. It's a dream world that this guy's living in, and it's very sick. Mr. Sam Carr, April 10th, 1977. This letter is to inform you that I am in the process of filing legal papers in Yonkers City Court to have one of your dogs removed from your property because he is a public nuisance. I have already spoken to the people of the Humane Society of Westchester, and they agree with my actions. So I'm going to comment on this as I go. Okay. First of all, there is the people, right? People of the Humane Moet. Derek, people of the Humane Society. And they agree with my actions. Okay, sure. I bet you he did that, and I bet you they agreed with him. So he's constructing this fantasy, right? You're probably thinking that I'm some kind of animal hater or I'm a cruel person, but that isn't true. Let me tell you that I love animals very much. However, one of your dogs, and you know which one, is obviously very sick or is being treated badly. He howls and barks constantly for hours at a time, and there is no reason for it. If he's sick, take him to a vet. If he cannot be left alone, then don't leave him alone. And if it's because you mistrust him, then maybe it's best you just give him up. When my wife and I set up our home in Yonkers, now editorial comment, wife and I. So now this guy's inventing a wife. He's inventing a whole fantasy life. Listen to this crap. When my wife and I set up our home in Yonkers, we wanted to live our lives in peace and happiness. Unfortunately, your dog has prevented us from doing so. Our lives have been torn apart because of this dog. We can't sleep late in the day. We can't come home in the evening and relax, and we cannot keep our windows open at all. Even with our windows and storm windows closed to include heavy drapes, the howling is so loud and constant that these barriers cannot keep the sound out. It's as if he was in the house with us. In the past week, for example, we tried to arrange our work schedules so we could have a few days off together. We wanted to spend some quiet weekdays, just the two of us, to sleep late, to make love, to read, etc. But the barking and howling continued, and we had no peace. Today is Easter Sunday. I'm writing this letter now, and as usual, the dog has been going at it for the entire day. Unbelievable. So before I get to the next page, here he is talking about some fantasy world, about arranging our work schedules, wanted to spend some quiet weekdays, the two of us, making love, sleeping late. First of all, this is insane that you would even come up with this fantasy. But then to write it into a letter to Carr, like, dude, do you think Carr cares about you sleeping late, right? And about your wanting to have some time off? And, you know, Nikozmas brings up a great point. See, that's why I love doing these shows live. He wrote wife and I, so a couple is suspected. You know, this is a really unbelievably salient and good point that I never thought of. He was trying to do exactly what Nikozmas said. He was trying to make it seem like a couple was doing it. This is exactly like in the Son of Sam letters, where he was trying to pin the blame on Sam Carr and the blood monster and John Wheaties and whoever that was, right? Very typical behavior of Berkowitz that we're learning about now through the hive mind and crowdsourcing. This is excellent comment, Nikozmas. I think you are dead on, and in my opinion, it's part and parcel with what he did in the Son of Sam letters. All right, so let's carry on with 2 more pages of this crazy letter. My wife is about to have a nervous breakdown, and I'm a bundle of nerves. We can't go on like this. The only thing we regret is that we didn't try to rid ourselves of this problem earlier. However, as I said, we are peaceful people, and we don't like having to take such drastic actions. We were always hoping that the problem would alleviate itself, but I can see that it's going to be another miserable season. No, I cannot afford to move. Our home is here. Mr. Carr, every dog is expected to bark a reasonable amount. That's normal. Howling and crying all day long isn't, and I think that dog is very sick. Furthermore, don't think that by keeping the dog leashed, licensed, and fed, that is enough. The law clearly states that if a dog continuously barks when unprovoked, it is a, quote, public nuisance, regardless of the time of day. Keeping the dog on the property physically isn't enough. If his barking, I have another copy of this letter, barking goes outside. Okay, so you can't read it here, but that's what it says. If his barking goes outside. Now, before I continue with the fourth page, Dave Moth brings up a great point. Shows he's a competent writer, although fantasy, it's well written. It's extremely well written. I agree with that. His punctuation is great. His use of commas is perfect. He uses words like alleviate, which most people don't use those words. Okay, Mory had us thinking this guy was barely a high school dropout who grunted when he spoke. And we know that that's not true, and we have now all the proof with these letters. Go outside the property to other home and disturb the peace of others. Matter of factly, I can hear that dog barking for blocks and blocks away. We do hope that you will cooperate with us to solve this problem. We wish to remain anonymous for personal reasons. Thank you. Okay, so all right. So he made this letter sound like he was some normal dude with a wife with this fantasy world and living this life of fantasy of wanting to wake up and have picnics with in Riverdale. I mean, you know, it was like absolute ridiculous stuff that this guy's writing. And of course, I didn't even think about what Nikozma said. Yeah, but he was trying to like pin the blame on someone else, direct attention away from himself by saying it was him and his wife. So there's a lot going on in that letter, and that actually I find extremely interesting. All right, so that was the so we've gone through the firebombing, and we've gone, of course, through the first letter. Now let's see the second letter. And this one was written not even a week, 9 days later, April 20th, 1977. This one does not have a modern shipping service or anything like that. It's just Mr. Samuel Carr, and it looks like a smaller envelope, although it could be torn in half. It looks like it's torn here. All right, so let's read this one. And again, it was postmarked 420. It was written on 419. The other one was written on 410, postmarked 411. So all this is happening in this 1 week in April. We're going to see what else happened in 1 week in April of 1977 in a little bit. Samuel Carr. I have asked you kindly to stop that dog from howling all day long, yet he continues to do so. I've pleaded with you. I've told you how it is destroying my family. We have no peace, no rest. Now I know what kind of person you are and what kind of family you are. You are cruel and inconsiderate. You have no love for any other human beings. You're selfish, Mr. Carr. My life is destroyed now. I have nothing to lose anymore. I can see that there shall be no peace in my life or my family's life until I end yours. You wicked, evil man, child of the devil. I curse you and your family forever. I pray to God that he takes your whole family off the face of the earth. People like you should not be allowed to live on this planet. A citizen. So you can see how in 1 week, he sounds relatively peaceful and normal here. Although now that you know who wrote it, it's totally delusional. But he's talking about we want peace, we want to make love, we want to enjoy the cool breeze from the Hudson River. 1 week later, on April 20th, he's talking about wanting to kill the Carr family. I must destroy you. You're selfish. You shouldn't be allowed to live on this planet. He had some mental break. Now, before we continue on with context, I want to see what the Nettos were talking about with their letters, because remember, it wasn't just the Carrs getting letters. It was also the Netto family as well.
Did you ever see the letters that were sent here to this
One
house?
time,
What did they say?
my grandmother tore her letter,
Tore them up.
but I noticed they had crosses, like upside down cross and a star.
Upside down crosses.
Yes, and the 5-pointed star upside down. The pentagram.
You're sure of that?
Yes.
My sister says something about that.
About the
they
queen.
Send the letter, and they're gonna burn. And they say the top of this house is the queen, and they're gonna burn this house from the top to the ground.
So the queen lived in the attic.
Yeah.
From what I recall, my aunt read the letter, and the letter said was like the demons in the attic above the third floor, they would come down to have orgies with us in the basement. That's what the letter said, because at that time, the family used to get together for Thanksgiving, for December 24th, that we celebrate that. We used to have a big dinner in the basement. So our family, we have families in Elizabeth, New Jersey, that would come down. We will get together to have dinner. And that's what the letter said, that there were demons in the attic, and they would come down to the basement to have orgies with us.
It's exactly what Berkowitz wrote in his letters after.
Yes, and that's what my aunt read.
Did he
that
mention
letter. That's
demons more than once?
I didn't see that letter. The letter that my aunt read, I didn't see it, but that's what the letter said, because my aunt,
Or just one
She
time?
told you.
I heard, she said to my grandmother.
That's what they told you. Yeah,
Yes.
and that's definitely true, because we
Yeah,
know
that
he
there
sent
were
the letter
demons
saying-
in the attic, and then they would come down to have orgies with us in the basement with the family.
All right, so he's writing letters to the Nettos about demons in the attic and having orgies in the basement, and meanwhile he's writing the Carr's letters about you cruel, wicked man, child of the devil. He's using very similar terminology in these letters. So he's basically wigging out. Now, the eternal question, not for me, but for the Mauristas out there, they still think that this was all faked in order to get away from the clutches of the satanic cult that was guiding his hand. Whereas I totally disagree with that. There's no evidence that there was a cult. There's no evidence that Berkowitz was involved in a cult. Zero evidence that he was involved with anyone at Untermeyer Park, including the spiritually sick Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Carlton Gajusek. I will never believe that. I'm sorry. I respect Mike Caparelli, PhD. I have a lot of respect for what he did and is doing with Berkowitz. I give him nothing but props and love, but I think Berkowitz bullshitted him on that. He knows how I feel. We've discussed it off the air. We're still friendly with each other regardless. You know, you can think, well, he was trying to get away from the clutches of the cult, or you can think rationally, like we do over here, that this guy was just batshit insane and he was having trouble with his neighbors because he couldn't deal with the noises that he was hearing, coupled with the fact that he was out there going out and shooting people. By this point, he was the son of Sam. I mean, this guy, this might sound weird, but he was under a lot of stress and pressure. He was not having a good time doing this. He was not happy doing this. So you have to think about it in terms of that and his mindset and all that. But one of the things that I wanted to do, and Nico's Moss beat me to it, although he's my boy. Oh, no, Dave Moth beat me to it. Although he's my boy, he gave us the punchline a little bit beforehand, but that's all right. It just shows that he's thinking, that he's a thinking man. I want to place these crimes in the context of the wider Son of Sam spree. And of course, as Dave Moth correctly pointed out, what was happening in between the week of April 10th, 1977 and April 20th, 1977. On April 17th, 1977, Valentina Suriani, 18 years of age, of 1950 Hutchinson River Parkway in the Baychester section of the Bronx, an acting major at Herman Lieben College in the Bronx, was shot and killed at 3 a.m. a Sunday as she sat in a parked car with Alexander Esau in front of 1878 Hutchinson River Parkway near her home. Mr. Esau was also killed. They had attended a movie and were sitting in the driver's seat when the killer approached on the driver's side and fired through the closed window. At the scene, only a few blocks from where Miss Loria and Miss Valenti were shot. The killer left a note described by the police as rambling and incoherent and ghoulish in tone. Alexander Esau, 20 years of age, who lives with his father at 352 West 46th Street and was employed as a tow truck driver, was shot to death with Miss Suriani in the parked car owned by his brother. So during this time period that Berkowitz was writing these letters to the Carrs and sending them through the mail, which is a crime, and during that exact week, he was going nuts. He was having this psychotic breakdown that week. It was a bad week for him. He went out and shot Val and Alexander. And I'm hoping to get Valentina's best female friend on soon. We have touched base. A very nice woman who was best friends with Valentina, and she has agreed to come on the show. So we're going to be working that out for you guys, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But not only was he killing, was he shooting them that same week that he was sending the letters to the Carrs, he was also writing his first Son of Sam letter. Okay, so you want to tell me, oh yeah, he didn't write the Son of Sam letters. Well, then it was just a coincidence that he wrote the Son of Sam, that Son of Sam letter is dropped at a shooting that just coincidentally happens during this week of a psychotic break between the letters to the Carrs when he's going crazy about their dog. He's writing a lot of letters to them. No one ever disputed that he wrote those letters. But then he also writes the first Son of Sam letter, where he names himself as Son of Sam. He's using Sam Carr's name in that letter, not fully Sam Carr, but Sam. So Sam is on this guy's mind between April 10th and April 20th of 1977. And in the middle of that, almost directly in the middle, on April 17th, he goes out and shoots Val and Alex and leaves his first note. So there's a lot of connections here. There's a lot of behavior that we're seeing that's within context now that you never got before, because nobody realized that the dates of this stuff is all matching up. Okay, it's very interesting when you put these things in a timeline like this, and you can see the wider context, and that takes, of course, away any notion that there was a cult. I mean, it destroys that notion even more so. So I want to end today's show by showing you also letters that he wrote about the Carr family, but that he didn't send to the Carr family. And these were found in his apartment, and there's tons of them. Many of them that I went through on my letters about his on my shows about his apartment letters, but I wanted just to show two because they're particularly sick. And the reason why I wanted to show these was because, again, these were letters that he didn't send to the Carrs, that he didn't want them to see, but he was still talking about this family. I am killing for one reason, that is for the honor. Oh, wait a second. I thought Berkey wasn't able to write with an OU like in the Breslin letter, or in the Borelli letter. Does that sound like Berkey from the Bronx to you? Oh, well, yeah, it does actually, because I see him using an OU right here. I am killing for one reason, that is for the honor and service to the Samuel Carr family, who have power over the Lord, the air, and me. For the Carr family, whose goal is to have dominion over all of New York City and Westchester, whose goal is to torture and abuse many, whose goal it is to slay the good of the earth, whose goal is to make life intolerable to the people of this world. The Samuel Carr family is the most wicked and vile family to possess territory in this region. The cruel and selfish and wicked Carr family demands from me the spilling of innocent blood to feed the dog, to aid Sam's health, and to appease the evil forces to whom they worship. I am at Samuel Carr's mercy, for it is him who has control over me and my fate. I am broke. There is no place left for me to go. I cannot afford to move. I am without hope, trapped and enslaved to this dwelling place. I have been placed at the mercy of Samuel Carr. Now, there's a lot here. Remember, he was talking about in that other letter that he couldn't afford to move. So it's a similar term. Let's actually find that. Okay. Give me a second here. In one of these letters, he was talking about, I want to move. I can't afford to move. Right? Anyway, it was in here. I remember it. For the interest of time, I don't want to go through all that. Maybe it's in here now. My life is destroyed. I can see, you're a wicked man, the whole family, no peace, no I have nothing to lose. Anyway, it was in here somewhere, but the language is this almost the same. I cannot afford to move. I kill for Samuel Carr and his blood monster. If anybody doubts the existence of the two, then let him go to 316 Warburton and view that old horror house. Then look at the old, ugly Samuel Carr. Then venture behind the house and gaze into the backyard. There you will see, if you are unlucky, the monster. So remember, in the Son of Sam letter, he talks about the backyard of the Carr house. Go to the back, dig up. There's bodies back there. So again, like, here it is. He was writing the same stuff in his private letters. I mean, I've proved that to death already. And then finally, guys, the pièce de résistance. Now, this was written 6/17/77, so it was a couple months after. But we can clearly see that he's still obsessing over the Carr family. But I have to say that this one shows a little sense of humor and also imaginative writing. Okay. Stiller, Miller, and Godzilla, 42 Broadway, New York, New York. Gentlemen, my name is Francis Carr, and although I'm not as young as I used to be, I can still get into perverted sex scenes real good. I believe I'm the one you're looking for in your upcoming porno movie, Sweet Tootsie. I can do all types of acrobatic stunts in bed, and I will really cooperate anything except turtles and mice. Oh, copulate. I will really copulate anything except turtles and mice. I love bondage and sadomasochism. Please contact me as soon as possible so I can audition. Thank you. Sincerely, Francis Carr. Okay, so this guy in his sick mind was not only writing the Carr family letters, firebombing them. In our next show, we're going to see he shot their dog, right? But in his personal time, in his home, in the privacy of his own home, he's concocting these fantasies about Francis Carr being a porno actress, copulating mice. And writing honor with an OU and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's basically it. Let me see if there's have his cursive letters ever been analyzed? In what way, Samantha? We've analyzed almost every letter that he's written, but and he has the very typical handwriting. It's very easy to tell once you know it. But I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. So Ray J brings up an interesting post here: plots, subplots, and deception. I think he wanted to be a crime writer, and that's why he went along with MT. It's possible. I mean, we know for a fact that he was heavily into true crime. He had a true crime pen pal named D Channel. He was part of a true crime fan club in prison where they would send clippings back and forth to each other. That's how we learned about Arliss Perry. I have a video on that called the Arliss Perry hoax. Pathetic. People are still out there talking about Arliss Perry and the process. It's like so stupid already. I don't live in this weird world of like where Roy Cohn is trafficking children to his farm in Connecticut and then burying them. And then 3 guys in the UN are killing children, according to James Rothstein, who was also at the Watergate Hotel while he was at JFK, while he was also staking out Untermeyer Park, while he was also at Van Cortlandt Park, while he was also in East Germany behind the wall doing spycraft for the government. I should do a show on Mayor Boots Jimmy Rothstein. The guy is full of shit, plain and simple. Nice guy. I like him. I respect him. But when you actually interview him, it's like interviewing a wall. I mean, you get no answers, and everything you bring up specifically, like, hey, Jim, tell me about hanging out and what did you see in Untermeyer Park? And then his answer is, well, you got to realize I worked all the rackets. That was my job. I worked all the rackets. You got to understand something. Yeah, what I want to understand is what exactly you did in Untermeyer Park. You've never told anyone. I think there's a big story there to be told between Rothstein and Maury Terry. I think Rothstein was one of the biggest instigators of Maury Terry going off the deep end in the 1990s. I think he came to Yonkers and filled him, Kevin Murphy, the brain damaged joke of a detective who was the laughing stock of the Yonkers Police Department. And Maury Terry, the drunkard, who just happened to be friends with Mayor Spencer. Mayor Spencer put him and Kevin Murphy together, said, "Go play in Untermeyer Park, guys. Just have your fun." And then they brought in totally unauthorized Detective Rothstein to come into Yonkers. Rothstein didn't know the first thing about Son of Sam, but he starts talking to them about Ace Brown and the child trafficking networks. And then the next thing you know, David Berkowitz knows all the characters of Operation Together, including Shelley Seiden, Steve London, major people in the gay underground and the nightclub world of New York City. I mean, how naive do you have to be to believe this crap? So the nexus between Rothstein and Maury Terry is one that needs to be analyzed. Maybe it's not going to be me that analyzes it, although I happen to have insight in it that no one else has. But I can say with great confidence that it was the off his rocker Jim Rothstein who convinced the drunkard and off his rocker Maury Terry that there was a wider child trafficking network involved with Son of Sam. And of course, we can't forget the guy who thought he was the Pope and who got his gun taken away by NYPD because he threatened to kill the Pope. The absolutely mentally ill detective. Again, nice guy. I like him personally. I've been to his birthday parties, but Chinati is mentally ill, and he's always been mentally ill. He might have actually even been worse in the 1970s. So that's who Maury Terry used to give his investigation a sheen of credibility. And no, you have total reprobates like Ed Flopperman, right? Total douchebag jerk off. He's now putting videos up about before Son of Sam and the process and Son of Sam cult. This guy's like throwing up videos that are like 10 years old with Rothstein and my friend Mike Codella. I gotta say, Mike Codella is my friend. Mike Codella specifically asked me who made me the expert in Son of Sam. Right? That's what Mike Codella said to me one day off the air. Mike is incredulous at the fact that all these people think that he's the go-to guy for Son of Sam information. And anyone who still thinks that Jim Rothstein is the go-to guy for Son of Sam investigation, you're just as dumb as Ed Opperman. All right. So anyway, guys, all right. I think we've said enough for today. I didn't want to get too far afield into the personal, because this is actually a very serious topic. The crimes against the Carr families were no joke. These people were heroes of the Son of Sam case. This historical crime, this sham, this absolute travesty of justice, this lies that Maury Terry told about the Carr family, that he still has mouth breathers believing to this day. It has to stop, because real human beings had their lives utterly destroyed because of this, because of Maury Terry's lies. Carr has had to live with this since 1979. Not only did she have her two brothers die tragically, but then they get blamed for being Son of Sam accomplices. And then to add icing to the cake, Maury Terry insinuates that not only was Carr the shooter of potentially two Son of Sam victims, but also that she was having a relationship with David Berkowitz. It's absolutely disgusting. Maury Terry was a pig. That's all I can say. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks for coming in. Thanks for hanging with me on this show that we were supposed to do another day, but I decided to do it today because I was bored and had an apartment free of Maxie. I don't have him running around. As much as I love the guy, it's just easier to do shows when he's not here. So that's kind of how we're rolling nowadays. And part 2 is coming soon. We're going to do we're going to do the a larger analysis of the shooting of Harvey. We're going to look at all those police reports, and we're going to really round out the whole topic of Son of Sam's crimes against the Carr family. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and take care. We'll see you next time.